Shalom. The treasure of the Lord is just waiting to be discovered. So let's seek Him with all of our heart as we continue looking at the details the Lord gives us about the tabernacle and His desire to dwell with His people. Verse 8, and let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell in their midst, exactly as I show you concerning the pattern of the tabernacle and of all its furniture, so that you shall make it. God's desire has been to have His people build a tabernacle so that He may dwell with His people. Here is the depiction of that tabernacle. There are three areas regarding the tabernacle, and we're going to look at them. We're going to take away the coverings of the tabernacle and its walls so that we will see a look inside of the tabernacle. Beginning here, just inside the gate, we have the outer court. There's two articles of furniture here. We'll look at them at a future time. And again, coming into the tabernacle, the first room is the inner court, also referred to as the holy place. Here are three articles of furniture, and we will look at those also at a future time. Coming now into the last room is referred to as the Holy of Holies, or the most holy place. And here's one article of furniture, and it's called the Ark of the Testimony. It's also known as the Ark of the Covenant and the Ark of God. So this is what we're going to be looking at today. It's interesting that when we consider the tabernacle itself, that we look at it as man's approach to God. So we would come to and through the gate and make our way to the presence of the Lord by first coming to the bronze altar of sacrifice. However, God doesn't start there. He starts with Himself and makes His way to us, rather than saying, here, you come to me. And so He first details this item in the most holy place, the Holy of Holies. We see it in verses 10 through 16, the instructions and the details of all of the materials and the dimensions that are to be used to build this ark. Well, in verse 17, we read about a mercy seat of pure gold that they are to make and to put it on top of the mercy seat. Here's the details now in verse 18. You shall make 2 cherubim of gold. Of hammered work shall you make them on the 2 ends of the mercy seat. Make 1 cherub on the one end and 1 cherub on the other end. Of one piece with the mercy seat shall you make the cherubim on its 2 ends. And the cherubim shall spread out their wings above, overshadowing the mercy seat with their wings. Their faces one to another, toward the mercy seat shall the faces of the cherubim be. And you shall put the mercy seat on the top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I shall give you. So we had looked at an earlier episode how the first introduction that we have to cherubim is in Genesis chapter 3, when the Lord has them placed there to guard the way to the Garden of Eden and the Tree of Life. But now, as we see this next introduction of the cherubim, it's in connection with the presence of God, and now man is given access to the presence of God. Although limited, access to the Lord is given nonetheless, and it's connected with the cherubim. He says, there I will meet with you, verse 22, and from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubim that are on the ark of the testimony, I will speak with you about all that I will give you in commandment for the people of Israel. So He's going to meet with His people from above the mercy seat. So as we saw depicted here, the mercy seat is where God said, I'm going to meet with you here in that most holy place, the Holy of Holies. Now, Leviticus chapter 16, the Lord gives us detail saying that the high priest is not to go in whenever he wants, but can only go in one time out of the year, on the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. And when he does so, he needs to bring the blood of sacrifice first for himself, the blood of a bull, and then he will sprinkle with that blood with his fingers on the mercy seat 7 times. And then he's to go back out and take the blood of sacrifice from a goat on behalf of the nation and do the same thing, and then to sprinkle the mercy seat 7 times. And then the sin of the people would be atoned for. When we see depictions of the ark and the mercy seat, it appears much as we see in this rendering here, shining and glimmering. But with the blood that would be applied, there would be a dullness to it in a sense, because blood would be covering it. With each successive year, there would be more blood that would cover it. But when man saw it, first of all, the high priest, when he went in, had to go under a cloud of incense smoke that he put in first, and then he would enter into that most holy place. So he didn't really get a good, clear view of the mercy seat. And when the tabernacle was being moved from one location to another, this is the way they would have it transported, so that it would be covered with one of the coverings that covered the tabernacle, so that man wouldn't be looking at it directly. Well, concerning this description that the Lord gives about the mercy seat, and that I will meet with you above the mercy seat, I want us to see in the New Testament that there is a word there that is given to us, and the word is Hylisterion. It means place of propitiation or atonement. It's found in only 2 places in the New Testament. The first one is found in Hebrews chapter 9 and verse 5, or at least the first one we're going to look at, not in consecutive order. So in Hebrews 9 and verse 5, the writer's been speaking about the tabernacle and its furnishings, and in verse 4 begins speaking about the Ark of the Covenant. And now in verse 5 he says, and above it were the cherubim of glory overshadowing the mercy seat. And it's this word mercy seat that we see the word Hylisterion in the Greek. The only other time that this word occurs is in Romans chapter 3 and verse 25. When Paul is talking to us here about the fact that we've all come short of the glory of God, but because of our sin, but the Lord has given us his Son, Jesus Christ, whom God put forward as a propitiation, Hylisterion, or mercy seat, by his blood. So we can see very clearly that in this, the scriptures are showing us in Hebrews 9 and verse 5, that word is Hylisterion, and in Romans 3 and verse 25, that it's very clearly Hylisterion, that Jesus is our Hylisterion, our mercy seat, the one who makes atonement for us, propitiation for us by his blood. Well, one other thing that I want us to see in reference to this is in John chapter 20. You may recall, as we were reading in Exodus 25, that the cherubim were to be on the top of this mercy seat, on one end and one on the other. And at Jesus' resurrection, when Mary came to the tomb on Resurrection Day, we read that in John 20, in verse 11, but Mary stood weeping outside the tomb, and as she wept, she stooped to look into the tomb. And here's the tomb in the garden tomb in Jerusalem as it appears today. So as she stooped to look into the tomb, she saw 2 angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. So here we have a depiction of these 2 angels, cherubim, at either end of the place where the body of Jesus had lain while he was in the tomb. And now he's resurrected. But here is this picture, the reality of what the mercy seat was a picture of, a foreshadowing of, that Jesus is the one through whom we have the presence of God and access to the Lord himself. We had seen in Hebrews chapter 10 that through this new and living way, we can enter confidently into the presence of God because the curtain of his body has been torn in two. So, by the new and living way that he opened for us through the curtain that is through his flesh, and since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith, with our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. So Jesus is the one who has paid the price for us as our Hylisterion. But also, one last thing, in 1 John chapter 2, we see a related word given to us here, that he is in 1 John 2 and verse 2, he is the propitiation for our sins. And in this case, it doesn't just mean payment, but the one who made us favorable for in the presence of God. And then lastly, in 1 John chapter 4 and verse 10, we read this. In this is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins. In other words, the one who makes us favorable before God. Thank the Lord for what he's done. He's paid for our sins, he's atoned for us, and he's made us favorable in God's presence.